Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, we're going to talk about another pioneer in the bioenergetics, subtle energy physics area. And we're covering everybody. We want to get into not only, of course, the ultimate, which is kind of a misnomer, but radionics in general, which is using informational energetic fields that you form into what you want. But there's also, of course, the regular Hertzian energy. We covered that recently with a little bit on Ed Skilling, and we'll be having much more on him as we have obtained a few of his devices, his classic tools from the past, and we will be showing and reviewing them. What an exciting is that is. This is history documented, people, and we're the only ones doing it as usual, so make sure you support us. And of course, as usual, our links are having problems getting through, so remember, you can always go to the About page and find our website, and you can also find our Patreon account. It's important that you support us, and there'll be supporting information on this and many other lectures that will be available to Patreon members only, and that includes excellent printed material and other things. So do support us. It doesn't cost much. Become an all-access member as well on our website. This is all very important to keep our work going. It's really pennies. It costs $8 a month to get all access to our schools and information in our libraries. And to get all the extra information you need on Patreon, we recommend the $20 a month, and that way you can be able to see exclusive stuff, and more things are going to get exclusive. It's going to take time to build all that up. So we can't spend all our time building up these other websites and for the small amount of support that comes from there. So the more that we get, the more time we can have, etc., etc. But let's go into another fascinating area called bioenergies. And of course, everything is bio-based, regardless of what it is when it really comes down to it. But I'm not going to get into that philosophical discussion or to go into the deeper understandings of subtle energy physics with that. It's a term that was coined for psychic empowerment and all of this, and something I used to use often was the biophysical, which apparently was something that the Russians came up with, and it describes things a little better. These are bio-produced energies that are very physical, and these can be measured, these can be grabbed upon, used, etc. I mean, there's endless data, but of course, your scientists who can't figure out how to cure cancer after trillions of dollars. Yeah, when we reach 100 trillion billion goonion, what's after trillions? I don't know, but science will tell you what that is, because that's what they're going to need to have real energy and to cure anything. After all, they haven't cured dandruff. So they're going to cure cancer, yeah. Yeah, just give us another trillions, and we'll do it. And of course, as we know, all the physicists are all throwing their hands up saying, well, it's just really a gas. What's the point of going on? Well, that's right. What is the point of going on? Your job title should be basically janitor. Clean up the mess you made. So the whole idea is that moving into these areas of the biophysical is very important. It all ties together. And there is a Hertzian aspect, especially ELF waves, ultra-low frequencies, that interact with the bio in a strong manner. There's also frequency waves in general that have effects. So, we're living in this frequency nightmare, this pool of toxic filth, this basically portable dumpster that we live in, which has all these waves. We're getting hit by every single wave that is produced on the planet Earth. We get to some extent, but you're getting hit by TV waves, radio waves, satellites, Wi-Fi. I mean, we're all getting hit by these things, and we're talking about going to 5 hertz as another toxic energy out there. Nobody really seems to care, but these things do have effects. And there is a fair amount of research on this that has been done for many, many years that causes all sorts of problems. You just have to wonder why scientists haven't went out there and say, hey, we shouldn't use 5 hertz, it sucks. Well, I sign your paycheck. You'll do what I tell you, schmientist.
Yes, sir. Oh, the real physics are what you tell me, sir, because I'm a coward.
So this is what you get into with the entire field. And people need to understand that. That's why nothing ever changes. It's not that there isn't research. It's not that there isn't verifiable facts. You've got paid informers and paid cowards. The skeptics, the dumbunkers are all paid. They're delusional. They speak goo-goo talk. I'm a skeptic, goo-goo talk. And that's exactly what they speak. It's imbecilic, childish, kindergarten understanding of the world, which has been refuted and proven to be totally incorrect. But you're not going to hear about that from anybody because the parapsychologists, the cowardice government whores they are, aren't out there talking about it. Only I talk about it. And of course, that's the problem. And these other people are nothing more than governmental controlled criminal stooges. So, with that charming bit of information, let's move on now to the biocircuits, as they've been called. And these were developed to a degree, and they're an interesting tool. The reason why I'm kind of interested in these and wanted to do a lecture on it was because this was one of the first, I think this was the first tool I ever purchased. The first book I ever purchased was the Crystal book by Dale Walker. This was advertised, or he was on a talk show in Los Angeles where I grew up, the Bill Jenkins Show, and he was a guest several times, and this was a book, and in those days, we had dinosaurs, and you had to mail away for stuff. I mean, you couldn't get stuff for it. It's amazing how the actual retail industry and the availability of products has exploded, particularly, obviously, in the internet area. But we're only talking about 20 to 30 years, which is absolutely nothing. Before that, everything was the boom was mail order. Now that we see on YouTube, get into the internet. It's where the money is. It used to be get into mail order. So you had to mail order just about everything. And I think I sent away with this, and you had to get a money order and all the things happening. And of course, there certainly wasn't any support from my family. I'm sure that I did that myself. I don't remember how I purchased it. I certainly didn't have a credit card at that young age. And credit cards used over the phone and through mail and everything else. Again, that only really goes back 30 years. So it's not, people are really not understanding the phases of life. But regardless of all that, so that was the first book I ever got and got me involved in metaphysics from what he spoke about on the talk show. I'm not sure where that ever went, and I don't ever remember being able to obtain, because it was hard to get crystals, by the way, even little crystal points. There weren't no New Age stores back then, so I don't remember. And of course, I lived in the suburbs where there was nothing, I don't really... I don't think I ever got a crystal until many years later, but that's another story. One of the things I did get at the when things started to become more popular was a biocircuit. Now, there was a company called Tools for Exploration that was out there selling these. Well, pretty much your first, I don't know what you would call it, but this was at the birth of this alternative stuff. Now, you think a lot of this happened in the 60s, but it really didn't. This book, this company was started by a Terry Patten, who wrote a book, actually, on biocircuits. And lots of information is available to Patreon members who will be able to look at a lot of the printed material in the Patreon site where I've uploaded it to. But they were the first ones to come out there, and they were around for many, many years. And apparently it grew into quite a large business. And I'm going to do a little lecture on them because they are one of the people out there in the industry that was the first to get out there with, I call this new science, alternative science technologies. Not much came out, or at least a lot of this didn't keep going from the 60s. There was a lot of things made in the 60s, a lot of lectures, a lot of tapes, a lot of seminars, and all of these things kind of have disappeared. None of these audio tapes have really survived, and there were companies that put out hundreds of these, can't find them. And of course, cassette tapes deteriorate horribly. I found some tapes from the 70s, and Some of them are totally unintelligible. Other ones have very low volume on them and can be barely heard. Now, I've listed a lot of these. I should uploaded them to the actual YouTube channel here. But this is the problem, and older technologies and tapes in general, which is basically plastic with rust on them, don't hold up well, and cassette tapes are notorious for having all sorts of problems, breaking easily, the actual bad quality that you get from them. You play these tapes enough and your sound gets worse and worse. And they also had a problem with squeaking. The wheels would start to squeak and you'd hear that through your music system. So it's a very bad system that was around, and people still use them to a certain degree, and some of the problems have been resolved. I don't know if the actual tape itself is better or not, but these 30, 40, 50-year-old tapes don't play good. One side plays good, but the side that was pressing down on apparently doesn't play well. Side 1 plays good, side 2 doesn't, and this seems to be inherent in all tapes, even ones that were hardly ever played or not even played. They're even brand new. I found this problem. So what's going to happen with all the technologies that we have? We're losing data because it's all based in digital, and a little flip of the switch and boop, it's gone, and you can't get it back. So we're losing huge amounts of data just because of that. We don't really know how long CDs will last. CDs do wear out. DVDs, if you play them enough, because lasers are hitting them, they will deteriorate and they will start not to function, even though they probably, and we just don't know, have a long lifespan. VHS tapes, the older aspect of these, we don't know how good they are. They never were that great in clarity, and we don't know how long they will last. And most of that stuff, if it's rare or whatever, has all met the trash heap as well. So unless somebody converts that over, we've lost more data. But that's just a little sideline here, and let's get back to the main topic here, which is this bioenergy or biocircuits. So as I said, I got into this and I purchased it from Tools for Wellness. These were kind of the IGOS of their time, and we had amazing catalogs after that and carried all this kind of things, which were more boutique items. So things like biofeedback, everything else. So the company, which has been sold by the original founder, is still going as Tools for Wellness, and they're now operating in Austin, Texas, selling some pretty boring stuff. But it may be some interesting things that you may still are kind of hard to get out there. You may want to look into that, including a GSR 2 meter, which I didn't think were being made anymore. They have them, and they have them at good prices. Isn't that interesting? So the whole idea is that we certainly can facilitate, or they can facilitate getting some interesting little kind of common things. But in this day and age, when there's so much out there, I doubt if the company is doing well at all. Apparently, at one time, they were making over $2.5 million a year in sales when the original owner was running it. But that was when the peaker things. That's when I was making 50, 80,000 gross sales a month back in the peak times in the 80s and 90s when there was a real interest in this. That is kind of gone, but it just shows you that there is an interest in this, and there's still a lot of people out there involved in these things, but it's much more boutique now. This guy makes this guy makes that, etc. But let's get into biocircuits. Now, biocircuits are very interesting, and this is kind of a way of polarity or balancing your body energies and also moving your body energies at a higher level through you to create states of wellness, higher states of consciousness. And you do this how? Well, it's the same old story. You need a tool. And that's what mankind does. We make tools. The tools then make machines. That's what differentiates us from lower level, or if you can, I don't mean that in an inferior, because animals are much more superior to humans in every single way. But the bottom line is that's what feeble humans do, and we're able to do it because we stand upright. We have hands. So by far, elephants are 10 times smarter than a human, and so are just about any other animal. Well, what are they supposed to do? They can't grasp anything. They can't use hammers. They're not physically made to do that. So the reason why that Homo sapiens and its like have been able to move ahead is strictly because of, we used to hear this all the time. It's the posable thumb. It's the posable thumb. So the whole idea, well, it's more than the posable thumb. You have to have hands in general, and you have to be standing upright. So if you don't do that, you can't really do anything regardless of your wanting to. Now, there are a few animals that make and use tools. Certain birds and other things are able to use tools to make things happen. But this is fairly rare, and they're handicapped. There was some use of some sort of stone or rock or tool by some bird to crack something open. But, you're pretty limited when you have to hold that tool in your beak and throw it at something. And that's exactly what it did. So, but we go to this, and these are biocircuits are basically a square piece of copper. Usually, this would be some sort of screen type material, something you could see through. But any type of guy, I prefer, and the bio circuits that we're going to be making are going to be pretty much made out of sheeting, which grabs much more energy than a screen. Now, a screen is like a screen door. You see through it, air goes through it, etc. I don't think that's an efficient way of moving energies as well, because you're getting kind of breakages there. But they're two screens approximately, depending on what you get, they're anywhere from 6 to 8 inches. Some are bigger, some are a foot by a foot. The size of it is not overly critical, even though I would think having a larger one would be better. And you have a screen like this square cutout. It's connected to a wire, typically what would be speaker wire, copper wire, that's about 3 to 4 feet long, connected to a copper handle. So you've got this netting, it's cut, and we're going to be showing you these demonstrates this in our next video. This is just kind of lecture 1 to give you a background, but I'm going to show you what screens look like and how they work, so I won't take too much time here. So you have 2 of these. One goes behind your neck and this handle, it goes behind your neck into your head for obvious reasons. This is where energy is flowing up from the spine into the brain, etc. And this then goes over to your left hand. You're holding the handle in your left hand, and then you have another screen, exactly the same, that is held by your right hand, and this goes under your lower back, which you consider, again, very chiropractic in nature, where the energy is flowing from the bottom of your spine all the way up. And of course, this is going to increase the bioenergy within your body, as chiropractors believe, and you get this flow of energy, and of course, this heals you. So I think this is pretty well understood. And the concepts of chiropractor work makes sense to me, even though I've never found a good chiropractic. They mostly hurt me. When you start messing with backs and everything else, you can do a lot more harm than good. So you have to be very careful, and I've had them hurt me, and I've had them do wrong work, and I've heard this from a lot of people. If you find a good one that knows what they're doing, this certainly can be a boost, because this is setting up a flow of bioenergy strongly through your body. You could call this a type of back chi work. So you get that energy flowing, which is very, it's not only chi based, but it's very electromagnetic, because that's what the bioenergy of a human body is. You're basically a wet battery. And the whole idea is that energy. So it makes sense, the concept behind it. The practical applications is quite different, including the device called Biocircuits is quite different from exactly what makes greater sense. And we're going to go into that. Now, but it flows energy there. This promotes states of relaxation, feeling good, and healing, and all the other things that people like to say this kind of energy does, which is very, I hate to say it, very nebulous. And it's extremely soft, subtle energy. Now, I worked with biocircuits for at least 3 years consistently. I did everything from sleep in them to use them often in long periods of time, different states of consciousness, etc. And we'll talk about the results that I got and what my general opinion of them is and the concept of it all. But I don't want to wait too much. Let's get into this. Now, this idea for the biocircuit came from an Ernst Lehman. He was a Belgian man. He was from Ghent, Belgium. He was born May 18th, 1889. So it's important to understand that this is pretty much everything. This is the late 1800s here. We're talking about 1889. He was born. So it's important because there's a certain understanding back then and a certain level of technology that we need to understand. So he was a Belgianite, Belgianese. So it's not really important to any great degree, except that it's good to know a time frame. He served in, of course, like everything happened in Europe in the 1900s, or the 20th century, basically, in the First World War, and he was part of the Belgian Air Force from 1915 to 1918, and that horrific, if any war is any good, but apparently everybody wants to forgive and forget that entire generations were murdered by the vicious Germans. Well, now you bought these, woohoo! So the whole idea is all of this nonsense went on. But, it's also interesting when you research people how you get different stories from everybody. So what his physical problems were and how severe they are, I got 4 different angles to it. But apparently he got into a bad plane crash. Now, it doesn't say if this was war-related or not. Maybe it wasn't. Could have been just a plane crash that he wasn't necessarily shot or anything else. Apparently, it said he sustained severe injuries from a plane crash, not necessarily from combat, but it could have been the result of combat. We don't know. One source tells me he also has dysentery and malaria, which was very prevalent in the First World War. Nobody else mentions that. Another person mentioned that he was paralyzed from this crash. Well, I don't know how he got around and figured everything else, but I don't know. He spent 2 years in the hospital and in horrible pain they gave him basically no chances of getting better. So, of course, as is the same today, he came to the conclusion that, look, they ain't going to help me. I've got to help myself. So he started thinking about laying on of hands, and like everybody goes into Bible verses of saying this is the way that people were healed. And I don't know how he equated that to bioenergy, but he did. And it's a little bit sketchy, and I'm not going to go into all. It's really unimportant of going into all the details here because it gets to the point of there's no really interest in it. You want to find out, check his work, which we have a copy of his book for Patreon members that you can download there. Because he wrote a big thing, he called it cooperative healing. Okay, the term biocircuits came from Terry Pattern book. And apparently he went to London, and then he started his kind of research and so forth there. I'm not sure how everybody puts this together in terms of how you just do that, but apparently people were able to do that and able to move around, and he set up some sort of practice. Again, we're not entirely sure. Those who want all these kind of details, it's not really important. But he went over to London and did that, and so we had this. So we've got this basically. I guess we can round it off to 8 inches by 8 inches. These screen copper pads, you could call them, connected to these lines going to each hand, and that's under your neck and lower head, your top of your spine, your vagus muscle up there that goes into your consciousness. And of course, you could consider this when you put it underneath your lower back, you're kind of tapping into root chakra. So you've got these kind of energies, and you're trying to create, I guess, if people who understand the terminology a little better, you're kind of creating a flow of energy, almost a very mild Kundalini effect, where the energy is coming up the spine there, and you're increasing it so you can go into deep states of, he said, relaxation, which would then promote high states of healing. So how he went from the hospital to everything else and so forth is, again, it's all laid out in books and other things. So that's his basic concept. And you would lay on these, and you could have circuits with it and with other people. so you could other stronger people, or you could combine your energies with someone. Of course, this is quite fascinating and quite fun. The whole idea is that you can connect a circuit to other things, and of course there are advanced practices where you connect these circuits into lots of things, and I will get into that as well, because that's where your real potency comes from. Now, the whole idea is that this is supposed to put you into great states of consciousness, which will promote extreme healing abilities. This is something that I'm not sure how he healed or what happened or how it works for him. And of course, when we get into anything biospecific, and well, the problems with life is that, very few things can be stated as working for everybody. Is there a general effect? Yeah. And this general effect tends to be mediocre. There are extreme effects where people claim that it's amazing. There's other people that get absolutely nothing. It's pretty much like medications. If you look through the enclosures of what the statistical data on the medications you're taking, a certain percentage of people in their survey died. Other ones got no effects. Other ones had horrible side effects. Now, a percentage of everything. And everything in life is like that. And that's the problem when you deal with anything, and particularly when you get into changing energy fields like IGOS does all the time. Well, how do you increase someone's success? What does that mean? You want business success. Well, what business are you in? I'm selling toasters in Ethiopia. Well, most likely those people can't afford toasters, and they may not even have electrical. And do you have with American plugs? Well, they don't use American plug. Oh, well, I don't get it. I did the rituals for business. You're doing it all wrong. You messed up. So, empowerment is not going to overcome stupidity. So you have to be involved in the right. So life is complicated. And people who tend to claim all these great successes, no matter what they are, whether it's assisting people or successes in general, tend to have ends. They know somebody. They get a break. They're super lucky. When I research people who have done things, it's because somebody else has helped them. Plain and simple. It was not done on their own. So we need to understand that in terms of when we get into things that are very bio-based. So the energies that are produced by this, and what you're trying to do here is complete a circuit here. This is a way of balancing your body energies and helping them flow through your body. So this gets back a lot to Oriental medicine, where if a particular meridian is blocked, well, there's no chi flowing through there. So this causes a disruption in their body. Well, how do you get away? How do you change that? Well, you use a acupuncture needle to stimulate that meridian or remove the blockage so the energy can flow through there. Well, that's how biocircuits work. It's supposed to flow up the spine. It's a polarity. It balances the body's polarities, the body's bioenergies, which are disrupted. And by doing that, puts you in a great state of relaxation, promoting high states of healing. It's basically what it comes down to. People claim other things. When they're tired, it recharges them. Well, what does that mean? That's very subjective. You use the circuit and I feel better after I use the circuit. Well, what does that mean? I have more energy. I slept better. Okay. That's very subjective, and of course, it really doesn't matter. If it works for you, it works. And this is the other thing we get into. So it's hard to make general conclusions here. But I'm an expert. Remember, I've been in this field for over 50 years. I've studied every single tradition there is, from the Asians, the Indians, the Hunas, advanced traditions of magic and occultism. I've written over 35 books. I've been on CNN, Art Bell, BBC. I've done all this stuff, but more importantly, I've been running research organizations for over 30 years. And I have not pigeonhole myself into one type of technology or one type of belief. I'm an eclectic person. I believe in synergy. Put it all together into one awesome system that works. But the bottom line is that things work different for everyone. I have people swear by all sorts of things. One of the things I've used for many, many years, just like the biocircuits, with virtually no success whatsoever, is subliminal tapes. And this was a very big thing in the late 80s and 90s, and people were making a fortune selling these subliminal tapes out there. I used them for years. No success whatsoever. Other people tell me, well, you're nuts. I use them. They're wonderful. Okay, whatever works for you. I don't know if there's an absolute, but there is a reality that certain things are affecting you by placebo and not. Meaning the fact that, you like it, you believe in it, it works for you. Well, that's all that really counts, but there is a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is when someone who is open and honest and seeking, as I do, to make these tools work in any possible way without fixing it, there has to be an ultimate idea coming out of that. What does it mean? If you're doing everything possible to make this work and you're a person in the field, your review of something is important. If you are a believer in something or you feel that you like it, whether it's subliminal tapes or biocircuits, go for it. That's what life is all about. What works for me is really unimportant in the long run because it may not work for you. And the bottom line for everything is, does it work for you? Now, do you want to invest in it? Do you want to try it out? Do you want to spend some of your life force looking into it? Well, again, that's up to you. People should take general reviews and think about it. And don't spend too much time on things if you don't get results. That's why you have someone like me to guide you. So he was this sick guy, very badly hurt apparently, because it wasn't really body illness. He had a body trauma from being in a horrible plane crash, but was apparently able to overcome all that when he was kind of wrote off for dead. So, I mean, that's impressive. And he was able to do this through his own understanding of bioenergies, which is kind of interesting. It's also kind of interesting that, I always ponder these things. I find it fascinating of when you read about it. Eeman passed away in 1958 after a fall at the age of 69. Now, 69 isn't particularly young. It isn't particularly old either. But after a fall, well, why couldn't he heal himself? This is what I always run into. I mean, what's the problem here? This is your life. You did it before. Now, why did that fall cause something? Did he get terrible head damage? And of course, we never know the particulars of these things. And, is it worth researching? Not really. The point is you don't have enough time to do this. You need institutes with, you need many, many employees, which is impossible to do because nobody supports anything to look into these things. What happened to him here, and why wasn't he able to use his technology to heal himself? And of course, that becomes the ultimate with everybody. And it always seems to be kind of odd that they never seem to be able to heal themselves. You wouldn't think that would kill him. Or was that a cover-up that he died from some other disease? We don't know. But he should have been able to do that like all the radionic practitioners, including the famous inventor of radionics, or the electric reaction of Abrams, Albert Abrams, who died from a pneumonia or a flu or something that came by in his 60s. Why? So if he had the technology to cure everybody, you think he could have handled something like that, and of course had staffs of doctors using his stuff, you think he would be able to get help. So here we get to the same old conundrum that I run into all the time, and that's why these things need to be properly researched, and they probably never will be. So you have to kind of jump into the lake, jump into the deep end, and start swimming for yourself based on information given to you by people who are really promoting products to a large degree, or are going by something that they kind of like, which is what Terry Patton did. He liked this. There's a lot of data written by him. Eeman wrote several books. Apparently, he in one of his books, he even had J.B. Rhine wrote the introduction for one of his books, who was around in the 1920s, etc. apparently he gave him enough research, and there was research and testing done on this. It was then picked up years later, as I said, by Terry Patton in his book. Borderland Research was heavily involved in this, reprinted Eeman's books, and wrote a lot on themselves. They kept it going in the late 1980s, 1990s, up until 2000, etc. And from what I understand, the original author of the newer book, Terry Patton, has come out with a new book, because the old book has been out of print for over 20 years. But now he has recently published his new book on this circuit, which certainly would be interesting of reading on what has he discovered after all these years. He's also the founder of Tools for Exploration, as I said, now Tools for Wellness. So it's very interesting. So the whole idea was to balance this energy and to get the flow into you. Now, let's get down into the actual results of it. And you'll see my other ones where I'll show you actually what these look like, how they're supposed to be set up, etc. And this is very, very important. So, all of these things that go with that. So people need to understand that. So, when you see it'll be more blatant to you. And of course you can always go online, punch his name in, and see the actual setups, but there's been many variations, and rightly so. Now, when I used these for years, as I said, time and time again, because of course I read the book, and of course all books are just psych-ups for that product. And of course you're not going to say anything negative. Nobody's seeking truth. Everybody's coming to a conclusion for their own financial benefit. Now, the writer of this book was running a business selling these that he made. He made these products himself. These Eeman circuits, the biocircuits, were being sold by Tool for Explanation. So was his book being sold, which apparently sold hundreds of thousands of copies. So quite impressive for a New Age book, particularly at that time. So certainly nobody is seeking truth. Nobody wants to say, this is kind of nice, try it for yourself. No, this is amazing, you got to have it. Well, this is what they all do. And this is a problem. And as a retailer and merchandise seller myself, or I should say I sell valid products, but the bottom line is that you have to make them enticing to people. So you can't say this kind of works nice. So we try and do as best and let people know that everything is individual, as I've already said here. You're going to get different results depending upon your consciousness, your state of being, what you're trying to do, etc. If you're working with faulty stuff, if you're terribly overweight, you have a terrible diet, you're not doing the basic exercises you need to do to balance yourself, well, you're not going to get good results. That's why we always stress at IGOS that you have to follow our system. And our system is about centering, occult gym work, and visualization as your core training. If you don't have those skills, pretty much nothing else is going to work for you. But people don't want to tell you that. They want to give you a technique in a book, and this is going to solve all your problems. You don't have to work. You just follow the technique and everything happens. This is the kind of fraudulent con artist thing done out there by all industries. And part of the problem is that what the public wants. So if you don't tell people that, they don't buy from you. So we just don't know here. And as I said, I always look at what happened to that person. And of course, you don't know with some people what is their particular health condition all their lives. So if they live to a certain age, that may be an accomplishment. He had a lot of serious health problems, but I don't know if this caused other problems. But again, we just don't know. Claiming that he died after a fall, unless this broke something horrible in him, which personally certainly could happen with a person who was hurt badly in a horrible crash and maybe had bad bone structure or maybe a weak neck or whatever. Maybe he broke his neck. We don't know. And that would be something that has nothing to do with physical health or even having a chance to heal himself. So we just don't know. But you got to remember that people have lived into their late 80s throughout history, by the way. Benjamin Franklin, his middle 80s. We go on and on of people who are living as a general rule into their mid to late 80s commonly. Now, average life expectancy is something else. Right now, it's about 78 in the industrial West. With most people, probably that's your average, but that means people who die from accidents and other things that happen as an average. But a lot of people, and I'm not sure how many more people, it seems to me a lot of people, easily live to their mid to late 80s. And if you look at people's deaths, you'll find that out. And people are now living into their 90s very easily. William Shatner's now in 90 as a recording of this. Bob Newhart, the old comic actor, is 90. It goes on and on and on of people living into their 90s. So it's not unusual. Yet these people are not very well. So let's make sure we understand that. So we can really go back that they died probably in their late 80s when they were still, that was when they were still functioning at a decent level. But that's what this bio is. You're moving the bioenergy up the spine. You're balancing the whole body because it's also going to your hands and creating this kind of circular polarity balancing, which restructures your entire well-being, allowing it to heal at very high levels. There's been lots of research as of late that we don't sleep right. And if you don't sleep deeply and properly, your body never heals properly. Well, isn't that interesting and sensible? So the whole idea is the sleep cycle is there to make you heal. If your sleep cycle is bad, and who sleeps too well anymore? Your healing doesn't go to 100%. So if you're sleeping bad, your healing level maybe go up to 70, 80, maybe you're only a 60, which means you're going to get diseases. Now, if you sleep very sound and properly, your healing level is very high. And there's been researchers who looked into this, and I find this fascinating. Another key of this mysterious reality that we live in the bioenergy of the human being and the energy of this planet, how everything is so important. And you would think, yeah, I get sleep. Yeah, but is the sleep deep enough? Are you in the proper state that triggers high states of healing? Well, I don't think hardly anybody is. But those people that do live in their 90s and past, or even close to 100, well, they must be sleeping at a healing level to take care of things. So this is all part of the process that we need to understand. So this whole research went on. So this guy was selling these. I bought these circuits, used them extensively, and got little to no results. That's the bottom line, everybody. He was promoting it, his book. He was selling it through his company. It was based on research that Eeman himself did and others. There were people that tested it and wrote information on it. As I said, the borderland people were very big into it, including Peter Linderman, who was involved in the Biocircuits big time. And of course that figures because he never did anything. He's a new energy person who's never created anything and has come to the end of the line selling a bunch of junk as far as I'm concerned. And I've had minor contact with him, one little phone call, and certainly he was a very negative person who, under my opinion, didn't know anything. And speaking with a person who did, who had a nice institute at the time, he didn't really care. And he then tried, his sister contacted me, so it is alleged, was her sister, and tried to steal technology from me. So I really don't know, but I'm not a big fan of that. Unfortunately, I've had contacts with Borderlands, which I'm not a big fan of either, including the people that are running it now. Certainly these people had a lot of information. They were the cutting edge out there. They put out a nice publication, which I advertised in for many years, monthly. Yet they had absolutely no interest, and when I did have contact with them, certainly they did nothing to it because they were influenced and corrupt as far as I allege. So Tom Brown, and I think it's Tom Brown or whatever his name is, that runs that is not, or not any longer. He now lives in apparently New Zealand, but they had a lot of stuff. They're not in they still have huge amounts of rare books and other things that they can't get out because they're running a system like it's 1950. None of their books are available as PDF downloads or even in Amazon for sale through their easy printing. All you got to do is format them and print them up there, and you can have all this information out there and keep the knowledge going, which is something I tried to do for years with, unfortunately, not enough support. So what actually happened with all these things is that these kind of organizations come and go all the time, just like the Tesla Society that was around and big in the 1990s and then folded because of financial problems. So all these people that are pushing these things. The problem with all of these people is that what results do they get? Now, this is very, very subtle energy. Subtle of subtles of subtles. There's a lot of problems when you don't have, and now what most people are doing is they're connecting a wire from one plate to the other plate, so that you have a wire going from the bottom of the spine up to the top of the spine. And this, of course, makes a lot of sense so that you're moving the energy better instead of allowing a clogged body to do it, meaning you've got handles, the pads are separated, the panels are separated, but there's no connection there. You're hoping for the body to do that, and that's going to take a lot of work. The whole other idea there is that there's not really enough pads. You should be connecting pads through the spine and the top, but you should also be connecting pads from your hands to your feet in a crisscross manner, as some people are selling today. So this, of course, creates a much stronger circuit, but that's still not enough. What I was going to do at the time, and for one reason or another was unable to do it or didn't do it because I just didn't think it was worth it, was and they were talking about you add something into the circuit. Now, this means you would put some sort of vibrational energy things, anything from elixirs to homeopathics and so forth. But I think what you really need is to put some stronger electromagnetic energy in there at a very low frequency. So if you were able to hook up certain frequencies to this, and then you could also maybe put in some magnetic energies, and of course the good old radionics fields. If you could pump that into these plates, which you then sit in or lay down in, you would have an awesome tool. Now, people are starting to do this in many ways. There's a lot of variations of these bioplates out there, and IGOS will be coming out with their variation of this very soon as well. We're working on many projects, and one thing at a time. We'd need a staff of 100 to do all the things that we need to do. And the problem is you have to have qualified people that know what they can do. So, and this is very difficult to do. And nobody wants to work for free, so you got to pay people from the beginning. This is all difficult, and while research takes so long and is rarely completed, because you got to have all that money. So the bottom line is that, if you're a very sensitive person, these are a little bit expensive for just trying out as far as I'm concerned. I've seen these for sale now for $200 or $300. It seems to me that's a lot of money for a couple of mats going to handles that are pretty weak. They're not worth that, and they're not worth trying in that aspect. The tools are very primitive. Unless you're getting something that is connected to begin with, when you have numerous other plates, well, there are problems here. And people that have those, I believe those are even more money for these kind of tools, which you get. So, but like everything, it depends on where you're coming from in your sensitivities. The bottom line, these are not strong enough. And I don't care how your sensitivity factors are or not, they don't move enough energy. They don't even make sense to move enough energy. Maybe in 1920, the energies, or maybe the physical bodies and the electromagnetic system of the Earth and what connected to it, allowed these energies to work better. And he was a very motivated person at this particular time, wanting to survive. He was facing death and horrible pain, and he was able to push himself through it, which is a great pat on his back as showing the type of determined individual he was, which is very good. The technology makes sense. Well, let's polarity balance you. And polarity has been something that people have talked about and there's a whole system of healing based on polarities and how to balance yourself, etc. But in general, and there are books written on this and ways to do that, which I believe are very valid, these tools are very, very subtle. So maybe if you're a yoga person and after yoga practice you use these and lay down and relax and you're in a certain state, or you're a meditator and you can get into certain states and then use these, well, you can supercharge yourself. You can balance your energies, creating deep states of healing, deep states of relaxation, which promote this higher states of consciousness in general. So there certainly is something to the basic science behind it. If you're looking for what I'm always looking for, and that's strong results, I like to feel something. I like to be able to measure it unquestionably. There's no question this worked. This is radically different than before. That's what I always seek. This technology, as it is shown today, is not in any way near that. These little screens of copper hooked up to handles are way too subtle. And of course, they have all these studies that say how wonderful they are from very questionable scientific people, as I've mentioned, and sellers of the product. So it really doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything, period. So, it's all these types of conundrums that just don't make any sense, and everybody's seeking to make themselves a celebrity, a star, a discoverer, or fill their pockets, and it's really sad. Nobody is seeking truth. The only organization I know that seeks truth is IGOS. I seek truth. I seek what works. I don't need to make money from a faulty product. I'll use a product that works and get better results from it and make money from that. It's as simple as that. But apparently nobody else thinks like that. It's all about ripping you off, and they all have axes to grind. I wrote the book. I discovered this information. And, of course, what he did there, Terry Patton, is the fact that he was selling biocircuits. So he had an axe to grind, including a book. And that book, which sold these I think it's 250,000 copies. That's quite a bit for a New Age book, particularly at the time. Well, what percentage of those people bought his biocircuits? Well, I'll tell you, a lot of them did. Could be as high as 80, 90%. Why would you read a book like that and then not go out and buy them? Now, they're always a little pricey. I forget what I paid for mine. You're talking about in the early 1990s, late 1980s. I believe they were 80, 120, 150 bucks. It's a lot of money back then for that particular type of product. So the whole idea is these people had an axe to grind. And of course, like a lot of people, as you go by other people's research, I do the same thing. Well, this person said he got these great results. He has done the research. So, I pretty much give in to that understanding. Well, maybe it didn't work for me, but apparently a lot of research was done and it worked for a lot of other people. So these are the type of things you bounce around and so forth. But in general, this is very, very, low-level polarity balancing. You do need to have another wire connecting the two plates from the going up the spine. You probably should have other plates, and it would be a great idea to feed into this and create a circuit where you could feed either radionic energies into it, even a small magnetic field, or even an electromagnetic field that you could feed in there at very, very low frequencies. You've got to remember that high or strong frequencies, when they enter the body, tend to be negative. The body fights that. It's the lower the frequency, or I should say the lower the power of a frequency, the body tends to take it in and it doesn't become defensive to it. So this is important to learn, and part of the research that we are very well aware of how electrical energies and Hertzian frequencies when they enter the body work. And there's a fairly good amount of information on this. So, everybody's looking to get stronger and stronger energies, and this doesn't necessarily work. It actually causes the body to put up protective elements that stop the process. But everybody thinks more is better, and that just isn't true, and especially isn't true with bioenergies. But on the other hand, if they are so subtle, what is happening, period? And this is what happened. I tried subliminal tapes for years, playing them day after day. Every single day, I used subliminal tapes with zero results. Every single day, I was using the biocircuits, and I got zero results with them. So the whole idea is that, what does that mean? Well, I didn't get any results. I did not sleep better. I was not at a better state of health. It didn't cure any of my health problems. It did nothing. So does that mean that's the end-all, be-all? Well, no, it doesn't. These type of things, as I've mentioned, depends on your sensitivity levels. But as a general understanding from one of the, or if not the expert of subtle energy in the world, which I am, I'm the only person who even has a subtle energy doctorate degree, I know subtle energies. I also know what works. And people who buy things, who say things that work, well, that's your personal opinion. And I'm glad it works for you. But if we get 100 people, we're only going to get a certain amount of people who are objective, who are going to give you real information. Everybody wants to be special. Everybody feels something that may or may not be there. They're able to handle certain energies, detect them in certain ways, and more power to you if you can get things to work. But there still is a general basis of what is happening here. There's a science to everything. How much energy is being moved? Does this tool make sense? Well, the bottom line, in the grosser picture, it makes sense of moving these energies in a stronger way and creating a circuit so your body can rest better and heal better. Its application with these kind of plates is poor at best. It's just not designed well. I don't know what he did past that. He included a lot of other people, and then he combined multiple people into different circuits. And of course, that's fun and interesting, and a way of transferring energy from one to another for whatever particular purpose you want. But in terms of moving energy around from two circuits that aren't connected to each other, going only to hands, and ignoring your feet, which are part of your polarity, is a bad science. It doesn't make any sense, and it needs to go way past that if you're seeking strong results. The other thing is that if you want to increase things at a faster level of empowerment, you need to incorporate something in this circuit, something to stimulate your balancing, something to add energy into it, meaning some sort of ultra low frequency, or to go through it, or even a radionic frequency or a magnetic frequency to stimulate the process of your bio-empowerment at a faster, stronger, and more interesting level, but still non-disruptive. So the whole idea is this is very, very weak technology. And for the prices they're asking for most of these bad circuits, it isn't really worth it at this point. As usual, I recommend everybody read about it, be informed of how this bioenergy works, and of course, I'm well versed in this, and we will be coming out with some advanced circuitries in the coming years, which should overcome all of this, because it is kind of a cool technology. And there is nothing better than working on your bioenergies directly through some sort of circuit. Now, we need to understand that this circuit not of this sort, but radionic practitioners were creating these circuits. Ruth Drown was famous for you sitting in a chair that was an electrical circuit. You finish the electrical circuit by putting your feet onto silver plates, German silver plates, which is a mixture of silver and other metals. You put your feet on these, and she plugged you into her machine, thus creating a circuit for better analyzing. Oh, makes a lot of sense. Yes, it does. You've got to create a circuit to do that. So what we're saying is that this kind of understanding does make sense, but you also have to make sure, and it could be very powerful for analyzing and, of course, sending energies into you by putting you in a circuit. Why not? Makes sense. So the technology here, in terms of the concept of it, and there's a fair amount of research that was done with all this, certainly is still valid today and still needs greater research. Unfortunately, those who have researched it in the past are kind of as typical in all industries, whether they're alternative or common, a bunch of greed-based bumpkins that really don't know what they're doing and have achieved very little in life. It's sad that this is what it all comes down to. So here we go with something that was discovered in the 1920s and 30s, and even as going into the late 50s, and we still know nothing about it. And it hasn't went anywhere, and it's on the junk heap of alternative silliness, and nobody really cares. Maybe the revitalization of with the new book coming out will help this industry to some degree. And of course, there's a lot of people making a whole bunch of modified circuits out there, and that's encouraging to see. I don't see any great breakthroughs there either, but they are interesting, and who knows? Again, move the energy around, create a circuit in your body which is overriding your blockages, your blocked meridians, and you've got some fascinating, potentially very powerful tech. Until next time.